Kwichiri. Strive, persist, insist, become. Okay. We even manifest it in red dripping colors. Scary, isn't it? But my insistence today is that Kwichiri does not have to end in the negative. It must be a positive end. Easily the earliest recorded incidents of Kwichiri might be when Jacob was going back. I hope all of you know the story of Jacob with his 2 wives. And he had to pass through where his brother Esau was holding forth. He sent his wives across the river Jabbok. You can verify it. Genesis 32, 22 to 32. And he was scared. So he sent his family across. He stayed. In the night, the angel came and they fought. I held the angel down till morning. When he was down, the angel said, I need to go. He said, no, you can't go until you bless me. As far as I'm concerned, that is the easiest and best example of Kwichiri. He insisted, he stayed, he got blessed. And that is the essence of what we're doing. And of course, we remember the story of Philippides, the guy who ran the 40 miles from Marathon to Athens during the Roman War, during the Grecian Wars, when Persia was about to invade them and they were going to destroy them. He had to run to Sparta and say, come, give us soldiers, and all of that. Classical examples. I do this deliberately so that when you go back, you find out these things, because a lot of what we learned when we were your age, you don't learn it now. But something is interesting in your lives. You have access to so much information that we never had. I was in the University of Ife in 1982. It had the biggest library in Africa. When I go in there on a Thursday, I don't come out till Saturday morning because I'm so excited by the number of books I see there. Now, all of that is in your telephone. What do we do with it? So I'm talking about Kwichiri as it concerns all of us, not just the experiences we have, and especially as it concerns those of us from the Southeast. I want to tell you that Kwichiri actually has an elder brother, an elder and a grandbrother. You know, he has a father and a grandfather. At the dawn of Nigeria, when we now have the country called Nigeria, the white man conquered everywhere. Sokoto Empire in 1904, Kano Empire, the Aro, everybody. After he conquered everybody, he had two protectorates in 1900. In 1914, he brought it together under Lugard to be one country. So the only way these conquered people could relate with the white man was to go and learn his language, go and learn what he does, and that is education. It started in all other places earlier than it started in our parts. CMS Grammar School in Lagos was built in 1895. It was only 66 years later that the Anglican Church built DMGS in 1925 in Onitsha. So people have been going to school there. They had a 66-year start. Well, okay, maybe Methodist College, was built in 1923. That was a little early, but that's just 2 years, so 64 years. And then you become one country and you have to catch up. Our earliest graduates from here had to go to school in King's College, who was started in 1909, and other places, like Zeke, who was easily our first graduate, like Dr. Amu from our state, who was the first Igbo doctor, and like Mbanefu, who was the first Igbo lawyer. They all went to school in King's College and all of that, and then traveled. What they saw overseas, when they came back, they said, no, our people must do that. That's the grandfather of Kwichiri, and that was Onyaga and Wandeya. They started what is called Igbo Union. Zeke went to every town and every community in Nigeria that had a sizable Igbo community, Igbo population, and told them that they must pool resources together and send their children to school overseas. He was going to build the first Nigerian university about 40 years later in Nsukka. But at that time, it was not feasible. There was no independence. There was no money. We had to go to America. And he went around. That's when the Igbo people started what is called Onyaga and Wandeya. Every community was forced, or not forced, well, you're forced by challenge, by competition with others, to put money together and pick your brightest and best and send them to school. I'm sure Prof and Prof, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of people, a lot of our fathers went to school that way because they were good in school, so the community would send them to school. The Igbos started that. That was Onyaga and Wanea, which gave birth to Igwe. The more the merrier. If we put hands together collectively, we can do more, much, much, much more. And that was it. Well, the other one is grandfather. This was the father. But there's a slight cousin that came. Because what they did propelled the Igbo nation in the 40s, in the 50s, and in the 60s, that they now had the first Nigerian university. It propelled them to catch up with people who have been in school 60 years ahead of them. That was Onyaga and Wanea and Igwe. They were the precursors to Kwechiri. Unfortunately, there was the 2.5 years of hell that we went through called the Civil War. It shattered the trajectory of growth. All the lifelines Opara had put down to grow us here, which thank God some people have picked up the pieces and are now trying to make work. And then the war ended. 20 pounds. Houses seized in Port Harcourt, all of that. What would they do? They now had another thing. They called that one Happy Survival. A young musician, Edi Okwedi, he played the song Happy Survival. We're even thanking God that we're alive. Because we lost brothers, sisters, fathers, children. We lost property. People ran from Kanu, came home. Their cousins refused to let them stay in the house. And, well, we survived. But guess what? We thrived and thrived and thrived till we get to this pass. Kwechiri perhaps came into very common balance now, especially with social media about 2-3 years ago when things really became tough here. And if you are not jackpine, you are advised to Kwechiri, hold your hands tight. Try not to fall. So that's why I say I'm talking about Kwechiri as a collective thing for all of us. Because each and every one of us is going through a personal Kwechiri. But I must insist that our Kwechiri must not be that threatens our neighbors. Our Kwechiri must not be that. We are the most itinerant of all tribes in Africa, save for the Fulanis who take cows around. But we're the most itinerant who go and domicile. As we Kwechiri, we must do it with elegance. We do not need to annoy our hosts. When we are Kwechiri, we must not betray our teachers and our mentors, our students and learners. Remember, even at the height of Igwe, when everybody comes home for Christmas, a man is going, he picks 2-3 people from the village. That's when the famous Igbo apprentice system started, the Igba boy, which even Harvard Business School talks about now. But all of that, it all stemmed from where we were coming from. Like Achebe said, we must know where the rain began to beat us. Now, I want to say we must know where our common consciousness started. Because if you remember that before the white man came, we were all independent communities. There was no relationship between Onyengu and Onyensude. They were different people. But suddenly the white man came and told Onye Nkanu, because they are all Igbos, and created us into one indivisible nation and enjoyed all the nations to become one Nigeria. So the Kwechiri we have to manifest as we go through our personal struggles must be a Kwechiri that respects the sensibilities of others. And Kwechiri, because we know where we are coming from, must not be an end. There must be something that happens after that. I want to postulate today that after Kwechiri, there must be Mbuli or Bulie. When you have done Onyaga and Wanea and Igwe, you survived. And then things are as hard as it is, and the Kwechiri, you can't remain in Kwechiri. As you stabilize, you rise. We must elevate the thought. We must elevate the actions. We must elevate the way we treat ourselves. Kwechiri na power without taking care of the people that you are leading, that is not the Kwechiri we envision for 2025. We want a Kwechiri that gives us responsible leadership, that remembers that 75% of our population are aged between 14 and 45, and they are here, and a lot of them are just here. And suddenly we have this beautiful place that has excitement every weekend and during the week that takes care of us. I said, that's a very laudable thing. But eventually, we must come back to the fact that it is an endangered people that moves with sense. The Jews, when they were sacked from Europe after the Second World War, a lot of them went back to Israel because the state of Israel was created by United Nations with order number 181 of 1947. So some of them went home. A lot of them went to America. And they had money because they were leading Europe, which was one of the reasons why the Germans sacked them. You can ruminate on that and see whether it resonates with you in any way whatsoever that I'm not going to talk about. When they got to America, what did they do? New York became their headquarters. They took over the legal practice and they took over financing. You cannot do business in New York without talking to a Jewish lawyer or a Jewish banker, quietly, without turning money into water, without all the show that annoys the people they are doing business with. Then the second place they went to was Hollywood. That's why all the early movies that came out of Hollywood were biblical stories, the Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur, all of them, because the people who owned the institution, this was their story. We must also retell our story that our story is not money ritual. The Igbo man, kwechiri. The Igbo man, na-eme ikwebike, to get money. We don't kill people to get money. We don't lock a room and wear red and put our head on the ground and money will come out. We must change the narrative there. The Igbo story has to become what Fela said. Water no get enemy. What does this mean to us? As we relate with the rest of the world and the country, we must be like the water. We know we are easily the most important people in this country. I say this advisedly. But we don't have to chant it. As Shoyinka said, a tiger does not announce its tigritude. You live it in your life. We must be Miriam Wilo. Water flows into everywhere. If your pikin die for water, you go bring them now, you go take water. We must be like the water, seeping into everywhere. Graceful stream, watering the meadows so that people can plant. The great river Niger flowing down, people tapping off dams to make irrigation. Uguta Lake giving fish and crustacea to people to live one day to the other. The new paradigm must be Miriam Wiru. We cannot have a kwechiri that drips with red blood. Our kwechiri must not threaten every other person, but we must take advantage of our strength of character in Onyaga na Nwanneya, in Igwebike, and that we survived. There are hardly any other tribe that could survive that. So my conception is that, especially this generation that does not have the boundaries we had, you speak to your colleagues all over the world at the same time, on the same issues, at the press of a button in your phone, you access the same information, you have the same access to knowledge. How do you manifest your kwechiri? It must be done with elegance. It must be finesse. It must be like a midi. Remember, we have, as itinerant people, we have proverbs, we have other idioms. We say, we say, so why should we go anywhere and make enemies? We should go everywhere like water. We flow easily, peacefully, like the great Niger, like Uta Lake, like Ekulu River. We flow so that people can farm and we become salt of the earth. The essence of kwechiri should be to bring back sense in the way we relate with others. Thank you very much.